I want to first thank the Vancouver Economic Commission for their partnership on this, because they have been the lead in putting together this session. And this is an opportunity to blend the green economy here in Vancouver with the creative industry. So it's really a chance for folks just down the street, really interesting companies, really who are providing solutions to some of our challenges. So first, I'd like to just invite Javaria Veldkamp from the Vancouver Economic Commission. She's the manager of the green economy at the VEC, and she will be moderating this session for us all. So, Javaria, thank you.
Well, I also want to reiterate and start with thanking Zena and Creative BC and all the sponsors. I was so surprised to hear that this is not happening in our neighbors to the south, and it's not happening in the US. So I'm really pleased that Vancouver can be a leader in having this kind of an event happen. I'm Javaria Veldkamp with the Vancouver Economic Commission. If you haven't heard of us, we are the agency for economic development for the city of Vancouver. So what that means is we work to make Vancouver that hub for, we have 3 sectors that we focus on: innovative, creative, and green businesses. So today really hits 2 of those sectors really, on target with the creative industries and with our green economy. We have about 1 in 20 Vancouverites working in the green economy, and a pretty similar number working in the creative sectors. So, it's still a surprise to me, although it shouldn't be, but we are that hub for sustainable production in North America, so I'm very proud of that. What we want to do on this side of things, though, is also look at industry transformation. So we want to help these industries succeed and flourish and thrive, but how do we transform sectors as well that really will give us that competitive edge around the globe? So that's our role in working with Zena today. So I think throughout the day we've heard from amazing leadership within the film industry. What I'd like to do now is say, you're not alone. You're changing your processes from inside, and that makes sense because you understand what your processes are. But we also have really amazing green leaders who have companies that are outside of your sector. They may be in clean tech or green buildings or recycling, but they're creating solutions to help you do what you do even more. And so we've got 11 Mythbusters from our green economy in Vancouver who are going to share with you some of the ways. They're going to share with you what they hear as myths, and they're going to debunk those for us today. And we've actually heard a lot of them today, so we'll be hitting on some of the themes that have already emerged today, especially around food. I know there was a lot of interest around food. So our myth-busting format is a little bit different than the panels we've had throughout the day. It's fast-moving because we know we're between you and cocktails at the end of the day. And so I'm particularly interested in cocktails at the end of the day. And so the Mythbusters have 90 seconds. So they really got to stay on point and give you their elevator pitch for how they're going to debunk these myths. I have my colleague in the front here, Meg, who has a red paddle. So when we see that, we have to encourage our Mythbusters to stop talking, and we'll move on. And yeah, it'll be really fast moving. At the end, I believe we'll have some time for questions, but we'll just assess where we're at the end. Many people believe you can't stick to your values when it comes to food in the film industry.
That's bullshit. I think a lot of the food choices when we get on set with Roaming Dragon and Vidge's Railway Express are ultimately you're in control of. It's important when we get the call to come feed people that we know who you are and what you stand for, and then we can ensure that our values are aligned with yours as well. Too often we receive calls from companies, often for a second meal, where they're looking for something, and all they want to know is what can we feed and how fast can we do it, and they don't give us a set of characteristics or values that are important. Most of the catering companies you'll find on set in Vancouver believe in something, and we're tied into sustainable and local decisions, whether it's being part of the Ocean Wise program or using compostable containers. But a lot of what drives us is putting our personality into your meal, having a conversation with production companies as well to determine what it is that you want on set, so we can match speed with quality, local, sustainable, and so on. Is that within 90 seconds? Yeah, boom.
Yes,
I won't drop the mic, I was tempted.
Thanks, Jason. So, yeah, it sounds like even though you understand and appreciate the speed at which things happen in the film industry, it's just creating that pause for a second to insert the values, and it can be done. Thank you. So next, Jessica, can you help us bust this myth? And this is a popular one I know from today. Donating leftover food can be a liability.
Yes, okay. I guess I'll stand up too, since you set the bar. So that is a myth, actually. There's been legislation in place both in Canada and the United States for 20 years, protecting the liabilities of anybody who's donating food. In fact, I don't know if she's in the audience, but lawyer Mary Childs, is she here? She did some research, and in fact, nobody has ever been successfully sued in Canada or the United States for donating food. It's a complete myth, but people are fearful because we live in a litigious society. So this 40% of food waste is hinging on a large part of it. If there is surplus food, if it's imperfect, and they want to donate, there really isn't a fear. Unless you have gross negligence or malintent, you cannot get sued for donating food. So what we're looking at is through our research is this 40% is actually $100 billion in external cost to Canadians in food waste. This is at a time when food waste, we have 1 in 10 people insecure in Canada. So what we're doing is we're bridging the disconnect, our company Mesh Food Exchange, where we're providing a business solution to connect any sort of company that has surplus food and connecting it with charities in a very simplified, streamlined way where they can get the tax receipts, and it's really good for tracing and tracking so that there is an event of a food recall. They can literally just do the recall with a push of a button. So it saves them time, saves them money, reduces waste, and it also helps us feed more. So that's what we're up to.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessica. We're excited for your matching service and associated technology to ramp up. So this is where we're talking about people creating tools to help the industry move forward. Thank you. Susanna, next, I'd like you to debunk the following myth, please. Craft services will always use plastic. It's cheap and it's easy.
I'm going to stay sitting down because packaging is boring. And craft services doesn't have to use plastic. You guys have already dove into compostable food serviceware and organic waste diversion. We take over with our packaging in many ways where diversion leaves off, and we are getting it into the organics waste stream, part of the mandated legislation. And as you learned earlier, there's a little bit of knowledge required. We have an entire blog post on the difference between biodegradable and compostable if you need to go there and you need to figure it out a little more, or you can always just ask us. We know it's important for you guys to understand what choices you have. We carry over 500 regular stock products. We only deal in compostables with a tiny bit of plastic where performance is required. And we can help your logistics. We direct supply. We can go to site. We can go to location. We work so that you don't have to. We can also help you set up your waste hauling through some of the partners that you've already talked to today to make sure that all your products are getting where they need to go. Is it more expensive? On the invoice, it's going to be slightly more expensive. On the production, it shouldn't be, because the cost savings that you get from waste diversion to organics, tipping fees are 25% less for organics diversion than they are for regular trash. And so you just need good partners.
Great. Thanks, Susanna, for reinforcing and explaining a bit more on that biodegradable and composting challenge. Last but not least, for this part of our session, we've got Brett. Could you please debunk this myth? Many people believe that separating organics on set is just too hard?
I'm a terrible public speaker, so bear with me. But come on, is there any other alternative? Is there? Well, I'll tell you what there is, because I haul a lot of your or future waste to the landfill. I'll be frank with you. I haul way too much waste. I've built a business on hauling waste. I've built an economic model around it. And I work very hard now at re-diverting that waste and turn it into recyclable. So we've built a service. There are very good people here to help productions build processes and build a standard to divert a lot of waste from landfill. And I think where the myth is it hard? No, it's really easy. It takes action. It takes a room like this to work together as a team to get a result. And what productions need, because I see it at the end, I've stood in the waste before and sorted it and touched it and taken it to the landfill and avoided the bylaw inspectors to try and earn a living. It takes education and then it takes tools. There are very good services. I'm the last result. So all of these things should take place. Compostable utensils. Once you've done all that and good training and it gets to me, it will go to where it needs to. If there are errors in that process or plastics in the material, it'll go to landfill. And I will take it there and I'll feed my family as a result of it, but I want to do something different and I want your help to do it.
Thanks, Brett. And I know you didn't get to talk about this because we have very strict timekeeping today because of the cocktails. But, it's also great that you're using technology like sensors to make sure that while everything is set up, when you do go and pick things up, you're not having to do too many trips. You're going to go when that bin is full, and the bin's not ever going to be overfull because you have this great technology to sense and send you data. So thank you. So thank you for the 4 panelists that we have. You can take your seats. Thank you. And next we're going to talk about energy. And energy can be a big one. I think several times we've heard today that our grid power in BC is hydroelectric, so that helps us be one of the greenest production locations in North America. A stat I saw from BAFTA, and Aaron can correct me here if I'm wrong, but based on their study, every hour of on-screen television generates 9.6 tons of carbon. And I think an average vehicle produces 6 over the course of a year. So looking at energy and your carbon footprint can be very impactful. Another stat that I saw was transportation being a very big expense, sometimes the second largest line item after talent. So I'd like to invite up on the stage 3 fabulous speakers. We had Christine Carter is unwell and unable to join us, but we will start with, please help me welcome, Mark Rabin with Portable Electric. Did I pronounce your name right? Mark Conway with Fleet Complete. And Hilary Hennigar with Modo Car Share. Oh. I don't know where your picture went, Mark, because it was there earlier. No, I don't know where Mark Conway's picture is. I'm really sorry. We have...
That's me. Mark. I'm
Okay.
for today.
Yes. Great. Okay. First, we're going to start with Mark immediately to my left. And I would like you to debunk the myth, please. What would be your response when you hear someone say, you have to use diesel generators in this industry, nothing else works?
Well, I would say we don't use 100-year-old phones in our pockets at this point. So we are using, we're talking about diesel generators. They're 100-year-old technology. We have the technology now today to move this needle forward, to push this efficiency gap, and that looks like big batteries, integrated systems, and hybrid generators. We heard some talk about biodiesel, and that's a great gap filler in terms of extending the life of the current fleet that are out there. But to be sort of proactive, we've got to start developing those fleets the new generation of hybrid generators, big battery systems, and that's what portable electric is doing. We're starting off small as little range extenders for diesel generators, but we're looking at building even bigger generators. The myth, though, is that we cannot, we've been using this. All of the generator operators are trained on these, and power is one of those fundamental building blocks of everything. We just expect the lights to turn on, and we expect everything to just work perfectly, but we need the buy-in from the studios. We need the buy-in from every stakeholder in there to help push this forward. And we know that there are emission mandates, emission reduction mandates, so we need to now jump onto that technology bandwagon and really start to push the development of these next generators. And we need a lot of power for these productions, and that includes LED lights, so we heard a lot about that. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Fantastic. And I know if Mark had had more time, he would have mentioned his partnership with Vancouver Film School, where film school productions are using Mark's technology. And through that relationship, through working with the green economy, we can start to say, what are the needs of the film industry, and how does the green economy respond to that and create solutions that you really need? So now, moving to Mark Conway, can you help us bust this next myth? Many people say that with their vehicles in constant use, there's simply no way to reduce carbon emissions.
Thanks for no picture, but so TELUS has an actual application that is loaded into fleets. Vancouver is an idle-free city, first one in North America, but it is very essential to the industry that your vehicles aren't idling. So with a Fleet Complete solution, we can notify your project managers or whoever's leading that crew that your vehicles are idling that should not be, where you can shut them off. The other side is knowing where your vehicles are on a timely basis. Everybody probably runs into it where you need to get something from point A to point B and you don't know who the closest vehicle is. That's part of the software where just knowing where it is can be set up to the the dispatch of that vehicle. Just reducing fuel consumption in BC or Vancouver is going to reduce your emissions, which is going to lessen your carbon footprint offering. One thing the film industry has to get to is a legislation where it's a bid. If you're bidding on movies, if you're bidding on production, you have to show in your bid that how you reduce fuel consumption, how you reduce emissions, and that should be legislation. I just heard that earlier, and I was like, I thought I'd throw that in there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing those strategies, Mark. And finally, Hillary, I've heard that you have to have your own car to work in this industry. Is that true?
You heard wrong. You don't have to own a car. You can share access to 500 cars and trucks and vans and electric vehicles. And with a Moto membership, whether you're a studio or you're a contractor, you're able to have the fleet that's as big or as small as the shoot dictates. Basic membership includes gas insurance. As you can book the vehicles at an hourly rate, and that would include the gas, the insurance, local bridge tolls, and parking privileges. Best parking in the city. So you can park anywhere in a permit or resident-only zone for free, and if you're driving a cargo van or a truck, you can park in the commercial loading zones as well. Studios can supplement their own private fleets for trips like airport runs, art and wardrobe errands, or whatever, second unit shooting, and it again expands as you need it. A contractor, they don't have to have their own car. They can only book the vehicle for the specific shoot that needs it, and just for the specific time, an hour or two. What else? Oh, we also, we can turn your private fleet into a car share fleet. So you can very easily rent out your private fleet to whoever and offset the costs, even make some more money. And then finally, we also do a branded vehicle service where, let me just finish the sentence, where basically it's your car and it's zero maintenance, it's covered in your branding, it's optimized for sharing, and you can advertise your services or your upcoming film.
Wonderful. Thanks, Hillary. And how many people are Modo members in the audience? And other car sharing companies? Vancouver is the number one in terms of percentage of population for car sharing in North America, so that doesn't surprise me. Thank you. Thanks to our speakers. You can take your seats. So now we're moving on to materials. And I actually have, Mark, your photo is there. Do you want to come back? It's a great headshot, by the way. So I do have 4 speakers, though, because we have a surprise 4th speaker here. And we're going to talk about materials, which is a very visual area. We've talked about a lot of recycling in terms of food and smaller materials, but we're going to talk about set materials now. And a large TV series or blockbuster can use up to 1,000 tons of materials for set construction. So it's an area you can make a very big impact. And as we heard from Zena, diversion rates of up to 95% are not now unreasonable or unheard of. So please join me in welcoming to the stage our final 4 speakers. We have Tianis Snyman with Basic Design. Sure. Mike can, just so people know where. Wes Baker with dBrand. Elia Kirby with Great Northern Way Scene Shop. And surprise guest, Noel Massey with Foam Only. So Tianis, I'm going to start with you and your myth. Many think that set materials is single use. Nobody could make anything from all that random junk.
So that's obviously not true. There's a lot of other industries in the city that can reuse the materials that comes off sets. There's different ways of taking the stuff apart that it can actually be successfully reutilized if there is a design change made into the way things are put together. And if the construction company or the construction crews actually implement some of those designs. The other thing is the film industry uses top-grade material for their sets. It usually sets in a studio. It stays dry, so it's well preserved by the time it needs to be taken apart. So those materials can be reused in furniture making. It could be reused in other sort of sub-industries that can benefit from that. Personally, we've diverted truckloads full of this material into my design practice as a designer, making furniture, making backpacks from rubber EPDM that came off sets like Warcraft, and there's a lot that can be done. It needs tenacity and it needs a good sense of design and really thinking that process through. Lots of opportunities to improve, and we've always been interested in staying in that space and helping production companies figure a lot of that stuff out.
Thank you, Tianis. And I think it's great to hear that there are solutions for really tough materials like EPDM as well. And I know that over coffee or at some point you had the great idea of providing those reused materials as wrap gifts for people who have worked on a show. So really closing the loop in that sense. Wes, I'll come to you next. Many would say that textiles and fabrics don't have a place in the recycling system. Can you bust that myth?
Totally wrong. Most people are familiar with some form of textile recycling. The reality is, when you hear that, you think clothing, like, oh, I recycle the odd shirt, something wearable. Those systems are set up to handle enormous breadth of materials in terms of cotton, polyester, mixed blends, a whole bunch of different stuff. And for the most part, they're quite robust. So we the mentality that we go with is, when in doubt, donate it. There's a lot of channels in place that You might think something's garbage. You might think something's waste. I have these scraps, this cotton, this wool. Organic fabrics, by the way, are really good. But those channels, they can make use of them. There's techniques in place. They have the logistics in place. And these things end up to the places that can deal with them the most efficiently, the most effectively, and extract the most value out of them. So there are lots of things in place in terms of carpet and coverings as well. That technology is coming in. And there's also potential bans coming down the pipe too. So that is going to force a lot of innovation, especially in the metro area in the next probably 2 years is my guess. So something to keep your finger on the pulse of.
Thank you. Very succinct. I'll embellish a little bit with Wes was talking about textiles ban, which we're working with the textiles industry directly as well to help innovate in that industry. But there is a repercussion on this side of things as well. What was the other thing I was going to say? I've lost it. Oh, it'll come to me. But next, I guess I'll move to Ilya. I'd like to invite you to debunk this other widely held belief that it's simply too impractical to separate and reuse all the set materials.
Well, there's a couple of ways of looking at that, one of which is time is money. One of the things that's going to be happening very soon is garbage is going to be costing more and more to get rid of. So the reality is you're going to be spending lots of money to dispose of garbage when you could be doing things like upcycling and recycling and those kinds of things. So there's a couple of things that I do. We have a mid-sized shop and we work with a variety of people. One thing is we pre-planning, aside from the fact that we encourage people to try and use location or use something in an existing state or use rentals as much as possible. So we have stock sizes that we build things in and then we can reuse them for storage if we can store them. The other thing is changing the way we sort of build things so we don't use glue as much, so we can actually get sheet goods off of framing and things like that and then save it or store it or reuse it again. We'll also use informal networks. So there's, recycling is informal and formal. Lots of informal networks, which is actually started off building in theater, and we used to build in the waste of movies. That doesn't take care of everything, but does actually, it's one great way of supporting not-for-profits. The other thing is there's all kinds of formal networks, where there's Habitat for Humanity, or we also immediately, we sort our waste stream, and actually that eliminated, I think we now have about 1/5 of our garbage going to the landfill, and it saved us tons of money.
Thanks, Ilya. So clearly, from your experience, it can be done and it can pay dividends. And I remember what I was also going to say about Wes's comments and D-Brand. If I may, it's your company, but D-Brand started, as the name suggests, based on the risk of items with your brand ending up in the landfill, and what does that do for your brand? And I could imagine it would be similar for if you have very distinctive costumes, that if those are ending up somewhere in a landfill or somewhere where you wouldn't like to be associated with, it's about responsibility for those things, end of life. And so we have our final Mythbuster for this session, and it's Noel. And Noel, your myth is you can't recycle foam.
That's what I've been told, but you can. My partner and I opened up our company 4 years ago, and foam is recyclable. We've all been taught to throw it out without education, and that's been a big key to our success. We work with all municipalities. We work with all big box companies that have packaging issues, that our product does not break down. And once that lands full, what's the other alternative? And I can share here with Metro Vancouver, that other alternative will be burning. So we all need to do our part here with a company like ours, Foam Only, that we can recycle this product. The innovation is there, the technology is there. And I took a chance of opening up this company with no education of anything in the industry itself. I work with great companies like Mini Bins, Keep It Green Recycling, and we work with all the waste haulers because I don't have trucks. I'm just a processor in this, but we play a big part and all of it. And if we all work together, we can do it. I'm going to leave you with two things. BC Place, that's just down the corner here for you, the guests that are here today. Every 3 years, we fill that up with foam. In Metro Vancouver, what we throw out. So think about that when you're going home tonight, of the existing air that's in that building and what we throw out in landfill. And I just also bring some props here too, because it's very important on a visual basis. That's foam. It is recyclable. And the company we deal with makes picture frames and crown molding, or sorry, picture frames and crown molding.
Awesome.
So
Thanks,
again,
Noel.
it is recyclable. We can make things out of this stuff.
Great thoughts to leave us with. Thank you very much. So we kept things snappy. We were a little snappy and made people cut short their thoughts, but we do have some time. So I would like to throw it open for about 10 minutes of questions. We have our 4 speakers here who I'll just invite to stay here. And if my other speakers, if a question comes to you, perhaps you could just stand up. I think we have a slide with everybody up here. So over to you for your questions, comments, thoughts. I'll repeat the question. Can everyone hear at the back? The question was, how clean does the styrofoam need to be?
Well, we have done a lot of recycling with the film industry, which is great, so thank you for that. But there's a lot of education that we still work with you guys and to ensure that it doesn't go to landfill. But to answer your question, it does have to be clean because, again, going back into something that my client needs is raw, clean product. But I know you guys do a lot with glue. We can get away with a certain percentage with glue. The big one is paint, though. Paint is a challenge because what it does is it changes the color from white to a dark color that now isn't reusable for the client to make into these products. So we do have a hot wire that we do cut off the paint at times when we can work together with you, but if not, then if you can do that on the construction side of the dismantle of the construction part, I think that's where the education comes in with you guys, is again, I believe someone mentioned working with you in the beginning, not the end, and then it stays out of many bins and doesn't go to landfill, right? So again, working together.
Thanks, Noel. Have a question at the back there, if we can get the mic.
Thanks. I have a question for Jason, Roaming Dragon Catering. I know that you exemplified that you will do what you're asked of. Are you asking of them or suggesting to whoever is hiring you, production managers, for example, what may be more sustainable for their crews?
Great question. Oftentimes when we get a call, Roaming Dragon is one of our brands. Vidge's Railway Express is another. We don't do full catering from breakfast, lunch, dinner. We often get the call for a second meal. I call it the oh shit call. It's production is extended. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. Oh shit. We get the call. Can you feed 200 people in Langley tonight at midnight? So we oftentimes the call isn't in depth. We as a company focus on making sure that our proteins are hormone-free, antibiotic-free, ocean-wise for seafood. So those are things that are in the DNA of our company. So oftentimes it's not part of the dialogue because it's a hurried and a distressed call, so to speak. But what I would suggest to people is if you are calling a caterer, ask them. Ask them where their meat comes from, where their proteins come from. Are they ocean-wise certified, things of that nature. And that'll shorten the list of people you call once you have an understanding of is this a company that embodies that. But we do need to do a better job of marketing that's who we are.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for the question. I have one over here.
I have a question about food. I'm a craft service person, and I know a lot of the people out there don't have the room to store their food at the correct temperature for food safe. And often you'll purchase something that comes for your second meal, and they won't eat a whole bunch of it. So if we can, we donate it, and if we can't keep it at the right temperature, we can't donate it. And I'm hearing different things about what we can do, but I've called around probably about 20 different companies, I've tried to do lots of things that I do under the table, kind of, that we're not supposed to do. And it's nice to hear that people are working towards that, because I don't like throwing food out. But how do we get the food where it needs to go in a timely fashion so that it's food safe?
So I think that's a question for Jessica.
Thanks for the question. And yeah, I think that that's a really big problem. I mean, at the end of the day, the food has to be safe, and you have to adhere to food safe guidelines. Our objective is to make sure that you can redirect the food at a cost-effective and convenient way. So the reason why we call it mesh is we see it as a safety net from the landfill and directing it to higher uses. So humans are obviously the first priority, but when something cannot be controlled under the certain temperatures, then it can be directed to animal feed, and then maybe industrial uses, and then compost. So there's kind of like a pecking order, a hierarchy. So our goal is to redirect it to the highest uses, and then when it's no longer appropriate or it does vary in the temperature and charities can't take it for whatever reason, then we're automatically rerouting it in a very intelligent way so that you just have to post it and then it'll find its end goal, whether it's a farmer or whoever. So that's our objective.
I don't know who was first, but we have, where's the mic? Where's the quickest we can get the mic to someone right there next to the previous one? And then I'm going to come to you, Emily, and then there was a hand over there.
Yeah, hello. I work with the city of Vancouver, and I do all the film permits. My gang, my amazing gang, we're about 5,000 permits this year already. So
Thanks
it's been
for making time
crazy.
to come here today.
Yeah. It's actually a nice break. My question is for Mark and Mark. I want to know if they've ever been hired by a film company. I have to say that the idling issue is a huge one. It comes to me far too often. I spend too much of my time talking to concerned citizens. And likewise, the noxious fumes from diesel generators, trying to find a perfect placement where it's not under someone's window or near a condominium air intake is a constant challenge. I have to spend a lot of time with the people that are unhappy with that too. So have you been hired by, and are you ready for the film industry? Because we've got 61 productions here now.
I'll touch on the idling piece. I don't need a mic. The idling piece, personally, TELUS hasn't been our key competency. Key competency has been construction, larger organizations where they own their own fleets, where we're reducing idling. Idling, driver behavior, rapid acceleration, harsh braking, falls into our industry. In the film industry, I work a lot with Victoria Police, and we work a lot with the City of Victoria, where they have bumper stickers on their vehicles that say we are an idle-free city, idle-free province, and that welcomes calls in to that organization to say, I just saw you idling for 5 minutes. So it creates a lot of calls, but it is mandated in BC, it is mandated in Vancouver. It is not heavily enforced. It's heavily enforced by the public.
That was our plan. That was our plan.
They're yet to hand out tickets. Once that becomes more and more, it's like driving. You're not supposed to drive and talk on your phone. A lot of people still do it. It will be enforced a lot more. So, in film, it's more of an adoption rate on the production when they're hiring crews, it's what is your carbon off print when you're bidding on this contract? Our carbon off print with vehicles is X amount, and that'll fall in lines. Construction crews are already handing that into cities, municipalities, saying, if we're gonna pave your roads, our carbon offset print is this, and it's in the RFPs, it's in all over the.
Interesting.
I'll,
Hi, Mark.
I'll add that I don't believe the no idling thing applies for stationary power.
It doesn't.
So,
Yep.
so I mean, there's absolutely there's no no
Or,
incentive
or
no
concrete
push.
trucks or anything like that that
Yeah,
have to
so
do that.
so I
but-
think that without any kind of incentive or policy stuff, it is tough to start to enforce or at least even get those basic metrics
Mhm.
going on there. So, but the solution is hybrid to
Right.
hybridize your power stations and so on. So basically, that means that you're pairing either your diesel, biodiesel, fuel cell, which we're starting to see a little more. Anyway, your generation source with your larger battery bank. So you're actually running at 100% efficiency when you are turning your generator on.
Right.
You're topping up your battery bank, and then you're running off of your battery bank. So
Mhm.
at least that way, there's a way to mitigate.
Yeah.
So you're only running a certain time. The biggest issue with generators is when they're on,
Mhm.
they're producing, regardless of whether you're pulling an iPhone
Yeah.
or a 5,000 watt lighting array or
Mhm,
something. You're pushing energy out, and so that efficiency is very poor. In terms of what we're doing, we've done some testings of our units on a couple of sites around town, a couple of sets, and just trying to get primary information and knowledge. It's really is a challenge to get that information. It is a sort of a tight knit information, and so by getting out there and talking to the Jenny operators and the different stakeholders there, we've learned a lot, and which is awesome. And so we're able to go back to our shop and more or less tailor products and solutions for the film industry. So
That's
we're
fantastic.
still a small startup,
Yeah.
but we are, with the right support and the right buy-in, we can ramp up production and come and zero in right on the products that are required. But the goal here is to just make the whole thing more efficient.
And are your generators noiseless?
Yeah, there's no emissions, no noise. They're essentially like integrated battery units.
Okay, everybody invest and do his thing,
Thank
okay?
you.
Okay, thank you.
It's
Thanks, Mark.
portable electric. Thanks.
.com. I think we've got 3 questions lined up, and then I think we'll try and wrap it up. So, one over here.
Hi. My question is for Elia, just in terms of, you were talking about having, when reusing set materials, having an informal network. We've sort of been banding about at Creative BC what maybe a more formalized network would look like, and if you guys have ever looked into some kind of application where there's more information sharing between schools, theater groups, film productions, people who can start to really benefit from the reuse of set materials.
Yeah, I started off working in theater, and now we work through a bunch of different mediums and genres. So it's ultimately word of mouth is what happens, and so it's really, that's the informal. There are now Facebook pages, a lot of, like there's a Set Deck Facebook page, and there's a theater production resources Facebook page, and those kinds of sort of halfway between formal and informal. I think there's actually a real need to develop some sort of formal networking that would actually cut across many disciplines, and because I mean there are things that I do, which is actually I'll get in touch with the high school drama teachers that I know who are often looking for something. We'll take it. You know, and also lots of small theater companies. It doesn't exactly deal with the entire volume of stuff that's going on. But then there's also Habitat for Humanity, even in smaller communities that, you know, sort of dumps actually operate as sort of recyclers and those kinds of things. I think there's an opportunity for some sort of web page, startup page. I know in Toronto there's actually a network of people that are actually doing set recycling. It does require people to buy in, and I think that at a certain point, like as I said, I think once garbage becomes so expensive, people are going to actually, they're going to be looking for alternatives for disposing of it. Right now, they're actually basically asking taxpayers to subsidize this industry, is what's happening.
Thanks, Elia. There is, we've been testing something at the VEC called upcyclevancouver.com, which my colleague might be here to say a couple of words about. Could she get a mic really quickly at the back? The idea there is to connect designers who are looking for materials with materials that are available.
Yeah, so we've just started featuring a whole bunch of different designers in the upcycle space and building up a network now of over 100 designers, recyclers, and small construction companies who are interested in upcycling. So we're just getting started, but we do have a website, upcyclevancouver.com, and a fairly active Instagram account where people have started also posting opportunities for material exchanges and also sharing different design ideas for upcycled materials.
Thanks, Petra.
Thanks. I know traditionally when it comes to scenery and set salvage, one of our biggest hurdles is the intellectual property aspect of things, which I'm sure my studio friends can all chime in about over here. But how, on a lot of productions I've worked on, we've simply been not allowed to salvage a lot of this material because it's considered intellectual property of said designer or an asset of the studio. Is that something that you guys have come up against, or it has to, like, literally it has to get thrown away is what we've come up against in a lot of these scenarios? And so I'm just sort of curious.
I'll dive onto that one a little bit. That's where we started our business almost 10 years ago, D-Brand, for that reason. I was in the marketing world, and we had the exact same problem. We've shifted to textiles now because that's an industry that produces consistently every month. There is an influx of material, but we still do a lot of, not so much film stuff, but we do a lot of marketing materials. So if you have projects like that, by all means call us. We can certainly consult on it. But our whole thing is brand security with a responsible, environmentally responsible twist to it. So we do brand security first and foremost, and then we start plugging it in down the tiers as the highest. You know, we've worked with Thanos before, giving them stuff and anywhere we can get with it, but first and foremost, brand security, absolutely.
So one of the things, as I was working in film in the construction department, where I started in film as a laborer, one of the things that I always asked this question, and that's what also drove me to start the business that I do. Why can't people take this material instead of throwing it away? And a lot of the times people were saying, well, the production company doesn't want you to take a bunch of materials off-site because it does weird stuff. You know, when the construction coordinator drives away with a whole bunch of materials and stuff, you know, everybody wants to do that. So there's those sort of barriers. So there is a sort of a check and balance system that needs to be, you know, looked into, because a lot of the construction crews would actually like to take some of those materials. Some people want to build cabins out on lakes and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of materials that people actually do want to recycle in the network of the film industry, and can, but there are these things that are in place. And I don't know if anybody else can speak to some of that here. Yes.
I can't hear. Okay, yeah. Hi, I'd like to bust that myth from a studio perspective. I started working at NBC Universal in 2009, and I thought the same thing coming from the film industry. And being in the studio, there is absolutely no policy saying that you can't reuse things. I think a lot of the myth comes from the producers or the production designers. But one of the first things I did in 2009 was work with our legal teams to develop a set donation liability agreement, because I think the biggest fear from large production companies is that their large set might get taken to a small theater and fall over and hurt somebody, and then they'll get sued. So what if we have a donation agreement in place, and that usually covers liability if someone gets hurt once it's left our hands. And then also it usually says you can't tell people that you got it from our movie. And so what we don't want to see is a big, like, so we have the Fast and Furious franchise. We don't want someone taking a piece of that set and selling it on eBay and saying, spend $1,000 to buy a piece of Fast and Furious. Like, we don't want people profiting off of our waste. But we definitely support reuse and dismantling in any way, shape, or form, and I've never seen us not allow that. And I have all my studio people here, and everyone's nodding their head yes. So if you get that, Emily, or anybody else, please push, or any of the studios. But like, please challenge it, because I think it does. Sometimes producers are misinformed, or someone might be misinformed. But really, if you can explain, look, we're just dismantling it. It's going down in materials. No one's ever going to reassemble the set exactly the way it was in our film. Then I think that makes people a lot more comfortable with it. And we should put a donation agreement on greenproductionguide.com for liability as well. I think that'll help.
Which, bringing
too.
that up, you guys should all put your companies on greenproductionguide.com, because there's a open source vendor list to find green production services and vendors that we encourage all productions to use. Indies, low budge, our studio films, whatever. So everybody that's on this Mythbuster has great businesses and opportunities, and again, encourage you to put it on greenproductionguide.com.
Thanks, that's a great idea, and we've got more green economy businesses we'd like to do that with as well, so thanks for those ideas. It's interesting, there's a thread here, you know, we talk about waste and what we're doing with our waste, but all of these risks and challenges are actually saying there's some value here. You know, we don't want people to walk off with it, we don't want people to reuse it, so there is an inherent value, and we should probably just do away with the word waste, and it's just materials, because they have some value. And thanks to our surprise Mythbuster number 12. I think we have one question back there. If no one has eager questions, I'd like to wrap up with the last question. There was someone over here. Oh, great. Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. So I have just a couple of things I'd like to say to wrap up, and then I think Zina will close before we go to cocktails. First of all, thank you, everyone, for coming. I said a comment earlier to Sandy. Thank you for coming. You're so busy with so many permits, but thanks to everyone in the industry. I know taking any time out right now is challenging because we're so busy and hot in Vancouver, which is great. My husband's sort of in the industry, and I think there was something he said about the fastest route from going from a PA to a director is round about now, so hopefully that resonates with people. And then the second thing I just want to leave you with, Vancouver Economic Commission, some of the work we do, hopefully you could see today with things like Upcycle Vancouver. We want to keep having this conversation. So we often try to, one of the mantras in our office is to convene with a purpose. And there's a lot of challenges that we just started to hit on today around diesel and around foam, and we want to be a partner to convene industry, film industry, with the green economy leaders that we represent to dig a little bit deeper. So hopefully you'll hear from us. If you're interested in having a more in-depth conversation and working with some of our innovators, we'd love to be able to bring you together in a sort of a well-defined format that Zina and I have also been talking about. And is that my 2 points? Did I make 2 points? I did. Yes. So thank you very much for coming, and I'll hand over to Zina.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed today. It really, I wanted to thank all of the speakers for today. It's been really impactful, I think. I've learned a lot. I hope you guys have learned a lot. And I hope we can keep the conversation going and action going as well. I'd like to thank the VEC for this session and all of our sponsors, Creative BC, all of our sponsors for helping to put this event together. And I'd really like to thank VIFF and all the staff and all of the volunteers for working on this, taking a chance on talking about this subject and trying to push the dial a little bit. So thank you to VIFF and all the staff as well for helping out. And I think that's it. I hope I didn't forget anything. And we have a lovely reception outside put together by Creative BC. So please enjoy, network, continue the conversations, and yeah, we'll talk to you soon. All right, thank you.